Hey everybody, it's Chuck Dixon here for a very special post-Christmas edition of Ask Chuck Dixon. Here between Christmas and New Year's, it's a time for getting together with people, friends, family, and telling stories. So I thought instead of the usual question and answer format, I would tell everybody a story. Stir the hot chocolate and put on your jammies and get ready for a tale that I call Christmas in July. Now, this story has nothing to do with Christmas. It does take place in July. But even though it has nothing to do with Christmas and really doesn't have a Christmassy theme, in a way it does, because the wishes of four people that you may know or may have heard of or be familiar with, those wishes were granted. So, it's ChicagoCon, 1990. ChicagoCon was the second biggest convention in the country at the time. Drew huge crowds and people from all over the Midwest and down from Canada. And I think for about 15 years in a row, I never missed ChicagoCon. It was a big show and meeting friends and getting together. And it was kind of a nice, even though it took place in a big city, there was something folksy about it. It wasn't cold and heartless and corporate the way conventions are today. I have a lot of great memories about going to Chicago cons and hanging out with buddies. And one of those buddies was Dean Mullaney. So Dean Mullaney's there, and he comes around to a bunch of us and says, I got 4 tickets to the White Sox game. And I really want to go see a game while I'm in town because this is the last season for Comiskey Park. They're going to tear it down. They've got a new stadium. And he says, I really want to see a game at Comiskey Park. And who wants to go with me? I got 3 other tickets. Now, I said, yeah, immediately. I love going to baseball games. I'm not a baseball fan. I don't follow it on TV. I don't follow any team. But I like that shared experience of going to a stadium and seeing a game with an audience. I dig that vibe. Baseball's a game that, I don't know, for me really works better watching it live right there with everybody. And cheering and dancing and screaming and yelling with the crowd. And I thought, well, this is cool. Get to hang out with Dean and 2 other guys. And one of those other guys was Clint McElroy. And Clint McElroy dabbled a little in comics. He actually thought for a while of leaving his extraordinarily lucrative career in radio for the wild and woolly feast or famine existence of freelance comic book work. But thankfully, he came to his senses and returned to radio, where he's, for decades was, very popular radio personality all through the Midwest, the Ohio Valley. And he, now with his sons, has an extraordinarily popular podcast that I can't remember the name of. So Clint said, yeah, I'll go along. And, I liked hanging out with Clint still, So he said yes. And then Stan Walk said, hey, I'll go with you too. Now, I don't have a good picture of Stan Walk, so I put Sam Elliott in his place because Stan has a real Sam Elliott vibe about him. He's real laid back. He's got the deep basso voice and a little bit of a drawl. So, he's always reminded me of Sam Elliott. So and he was my penciler on Airboy at the time. And, the thing was that Stan had a car. He had driven from somewhere, I forget where, Arkansas, New Mexico, somewhere. He had driven to Chicago to be at the con. So he had a car. So it was like, hey, let's all go together. So we go to Comiskey Park, and it's a beautiful Saturday evening. I don't remember anything about the game. I don't even remember who the White Sox were playing against. I usually remember the away team's name when I go to a game by the insults shouted from the stands, but I guess none of them were memorable enough for me to remember. I'm sure Dean remembers. Dean remembers, I think, every baseball game he's ever attended, because that's the kind of baseball guy he is. So anyway, we have a great time. We're feeling good, and we leave the stadium after the game, and we get into Stan's old beater. This isn't it, but it's kind of representational. Picture about 20% more primer, and you've got Stan's beater. My reaction upon first seeing his car was like Princess Leia's upon seeing the Millennium Falcon. I was like, you made it to Chicago in this? You plan on making it back? It just looked like a car that couldn't get out of its own way. So anyway, we leave the stadium area, and this is before you had GPS devices or before your cell phone, told you every turn to make on the way back to your destination. So we were relying on Stan's memory of how he got there. None of us are Chicagoans. We don't know any of these highways. Stan makes a couple of wrong turns, and we wind up in this spooky district of warehouses and factory buildings. And it goes on forever. And it's this maze, this labyrinth of places that look like, Batman villains would plan their next crime. And it's a ghost town because it's Saturday evening. All these places are closed. There's not a person in sight. There's not a car in sight. The streets are completely empty. It's like Omega Man. It's like we're the only people on Earth. And so Stan, he's trying to find a way around. And when you're lost, you're trying to pay attention to the direction you're going in rather than actually what's going on around you. And I'm sure me and Clint, firing jokes at him wasn't helping. And he blows through a stop sign. Well, that's when we find out we're not the only car in this area. There is another car that was out of sight, and that's the Chicago cop car. So the sirens, the lights, and Stan's pulled over. And on this desolate street, Snake Plissken would have been at home on this street. And the usual thing when you get pulled over, if you've ever been pulled over, the cops don't jump right out of the car. They're sitting there checking out your license plate number. They're checking you out. They want to have an idea who it is they're going to be coming up on. So we sit there for a while and, freaking out a little. And Dean notices that Stan's holding the steering wheel pretty tight. And he says, look, Stan, it's okay. Just show him your driver's license and your registration. Everything will be fine. And Stan goes, well. Dean goes, you have a driver's license and registration, right? Well. Dean says, is there anything in this car that we should be worried about? Well. So Clint and I didn't know Stan very well at this point. Clint and I are like looking at each other in the back seat, like what's in the trunk of this car? A hogtied teenager that he found on the highway on the way up here. Is it loaded to the top with Peruvian flake? Is there a stack of loaded 12-gauge shotguns back there? I mean, what are we looking at here? And we're in the car with him, right? Like I said, I didn't know Stan very well. I assumed there was maybe a controlled substance, or maybe he's just worried about the fact that he didn't have a driver's license and registration, or at least not a current one. So out of this cop car get two female cops. And they start walking, and they're doing the gunfighter's walk. And they're approaching the car from either side at that oblique angle that cops use when they think there might be trouble. And, the hands are resting on the gun butts. And we're like, holy crap. So they get up to the car either side, and one of them waits while Stan pretends to look for his owner's card and driver's license, and the other one starts firing questions at us. These cops we would always remember as Cagney and Hitler because these were two tough babes, let me tell you right now. And so the one asking the questions wants to know where we're all from. So she says, Dean, where are you from? California. Stan, where are you from? He was from Arkansas, I can't remember. She asked me, where are you from? I said, Pennsylvania. Turns to Clint, where are you from? West Virginia. Okay, that's it. Out of the car. So we're all out of the car. We're all standing on the street. And the one cop throws Stan over the hood of the car. She's getting ready to cuff him. She's not having any of this. We blew a stop sign. We're obviously dangerous criminals from out of state. And we all look weird. So while this is going on, from the prowl car comes the radio comes on, and we hear. So the one cop goes running back to the cop car, gets on the radio, and she has a little bit of an exchange with someone back at dispatch, and then comes running back, and she says, I swear to God, she says, we got to roll. So whether there was like a mass murder had happened or a 60-car pileup or whatever, something more important than 4 out-of-state comic book geeks was going on that they had to go see to. And so they go running back to their cop car. And on the way back, one of them turns to us as she's running and she points that finger of justice. She just stabs that finger back at us and she says, right out of a bad TV show, says, "This is the luckiest night of your life." And they jump in their car, they do a bootleg turn Burt Reynolds would have been proud of, and they're gone. Screaming sirens, squealing tires, gun and engine, lights flashing everywhere, leaving 4 guys behind who are just trying to catch their breath, trying to recover from the fact that they just narrowly escaped spending the night in a Cook County lockup instead of going back to their comfy little rooms back at the Rosemont. So, like I said, it's like a Christmas story because the wishes of 4 grown men were granted that night. Whoever we prayed to, Buddha, God, Jesus, Allah, Santa Claus, whoever it was, our wishes were granted, and we didn't go off to the pokey to spend a miserable night on a cot somewhere with a bunch of drunks. So that's it. That's my Christmas story. Although it had nothing to do with Christmas, but it is a story. Hey, if you have a story, or you want to send me post-Christmas wishes, or wish me a Happy New Year, or send me more questions for Ask Chuck Dixon, you can go to Bruno Bookstore at gmail.com. That's Bruno Bookstore at gmail.com. And I want to wish everybody the happiest of holidays, whatever holiday it is that you celebrate. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Happy Festivus, whatever's going on with you. And please, please, please all of you have a Happy New Year, and I'll see you down the road.